The coalition party room yesterday was dominated by discussion of the ABC, with some MPs agreeing with the Prime Minister that the broadcaster had exercised, quote, very, very poor judgment in teaming up with Guardian Australia to break the phone tapping story. Concerns were also raised about a perceived left-wing bias within the ABC, and this criticism was led by South Australian Liberal Senator Cory Bernardi, who describes the ABC as a taxpayer-funded behemoth. Senator Bernardi is in our Parliament House studios. Senator, good morning. Welcome to RN Breakfast.
Good morning, Fran. Good to be with you.
When you say the ABC is a taxpayer-funded behemoth, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think the ABC has grown exponentially over the years, and if we go back to its original reason for being, it was a radio broadcaster in the 30s competing with free-to-air radio broadcasters and commercial operations. It became a television station and competed with the free-to-air television networks, and now it's basically encroaching into the newspapers of the 21st century, which is the online space, and I think it's crowding out the commercial operators in that space. It's making it increasingly difficult for them to compete, and I think it's a question of, is this a space the ABC should be in?
Is it, I guess it's a fair time to ask the question, but is it encroaching, or is it doing what other media organisations do, which is keep itself modern? I mean, the Charter says to provide within Australia innovative and comprehensive broadcasting services.
Yes, but I support a diversity of media views. I think we need a healthy media sector, and I actually support the ABC. I think it's important. It provides a very important services, particularly to regional and rural communities where they may not have, a full suite of commercial operations to choose from. But I do think, taxpayers are right to question, the nearly $1.2 billion, which is, and I use these terms, cannibalising the commercial media market, because I think it's crowding it out. And I want to make sure there's a diversity of views and a healthy media sector in this country.
In terms of that, let's look at the cannibalising, because when you're talking about it breaking up, are you arguing that in today's digital media environment, the ABC should have no online presence or no news online presence? Well,
I think there's a case that can be made for structural separation, and I think that, if you maintain the original reason for being of the ABC about radio and television broadcasting and competing with free-to-air networks, I think that's entirely reasonable. But I do think that if it's going to compete in the online media space, it should do so on a commercial basis, or it should structurally separate it and either ask people to subscribe to it like the main media outlets do now, or look at taking some advertising for it to sustain its operations.
But why is it different in the online news space than it is in the television space, when it's simply a new media environment that has emerged and obviously taken the world by storm? Why wouldn't the public broadcaster be there?
Well, Fran, the public broadcaster is competing in the, say, television space with the commercial broadcasters who are funded by advertising revenue. The ABC is funded by the taxpayer, but they're all accessible for free. And I think that's an important differentiation. In the online space, the mainstream media operators, News Corp and Fairfax in this case, are trying to sustain their journalism and their news reporting by advertising, which is not sustainable online at the moment, or through the existence of paywalls and pay-per-view access. Mm-hmm. The ABC is providing this service at a taxpayer's expense. It means that it's increasingly difficult for Fairfax and News Corp to compete in this online space. And I think, we need to make sure there is a diversity of media voices, and this is one way of addressing that.
But, Senator, I don't see the difference on the platforms. As you say, we currently have, say, the newspapers. People pay for their newspapers, and we have the online presence where the public broadcaster, which people pay with their 8 cents a day or whatever it is now, 13 cents a day, you're asking people to pay again for their online news.
Well, Fran, the public broadcaster, it costs Australian taxpayers about $1.2 billion per year. Mm-hmm. And the online presence are the newspapers of the 21st century. I think we have to acknowledge there is a move from print into online. The ABC has never been in the print media, apart from its commercial operations for its books and its shops and things of that nature. It's now getting into that space, and I don't think that it's in the national interest for us to have a weakened commercial media sector and a rapidly growing state broadcaster. I want to see the diversity of views put out there. I want to see a diversity of voices, and that means we have to have commercial operators being able to succeed commercially.
Yes, but we also have to have Australians being able to access the news from the public broadcaster, don't we? And survey after survey tells us that majority of younger Australians now go online for their news. Isn't it fundamental that the ABC be in that space?
Well,
we have a lot of news resources out there paid by the taxpayer.
Yeah, indeed we do, Fran, and that's why I'm saying that, with the ABC's broadcast capacity in radio and on television, it's accessible to every taxpayer right across this country and in many other countries around the world. I think that's a healthy broadcast reach for them. If you want to go online and get your news, you can do that. I mean, even on with the Fairfax websites, for example, you can go there and access a number of articles for free before you're requested to subscribe. I don't want to see the demise of Fairfax. I don't want to see the demise of News Corp, and I don't want to see a state-run media effectively dominating this landscape. And so we have to look at some structural reforms. And quite frankly, if you want to save some money, this is a means of doing it. We could perhaps cut the ABC budget and allow the commercial media operators to compete more effectively.
Is that what you're proposing? Is that what you'd be suggesting, that the ABC's budget be cut?
Well, I think there needs to be a case made for structural separation. I think we need to see the ABC cut its cloth to live within the budgetary means in this country. I mean, we do have a significant problem. We're borrowing a great deal of money and right now, and we have been for a number of years, and I think we need to look at all ways in which we can get efficiencies and better value for taxpayer dollars.
There are other competitors coming into the online news space that aren't charging. The Guardian, the Daily Mail is coming in next year with Channel 9. So just because if you did lock out the ABC from online news, Fairfax and News would not have it all their own way. They're still free competitors who are finding a model where they obviously feel they can make a buck.
Well, I think the Daily Mail, I welcome that their introduction, I guess, into the Australian market. I think that provides
Why
another...
Why they put pressure on?
Well, I think they provide increasing diversity and they operate on a commercial basis. The Guardian, of course, doesn't. The Guardian is a left-wing publisher in which it's sustained by a bequest and it doesn't run at a profit and so it doesn't have the commercial pressures, just like the ABC doesn't have the commercial pressures on it. Now, if the Daily Mail can make money online in news, I think that's healthy, I think it's good, and it will provide, competition for the other media operators.
And Senator, just back to that original point, whether this is just online news or online presence more broadly for the ABC, because a lot more is provided than just a news service which might run it in a competitive way, say with news.com or Fairfax. I mean, here at Radio National, for instance, 2.2 million downloads last month, 57 million podcasts by Australians, and the ABC leading the world in podcasts. Should the ABC vacate that space?
I'm not suggesting that. I think, it's a matter of record, and it's like providing a public library of what's been broadcast by the ABC. I think that's, a healthy and good thing. So, no, I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting, Fran, quite frankly, that, we dismantle the radio assets or the television assets of the ABC. I think it's a valuable service for all Australians. I just think we have to look at the rapidly evolving media landscape. We have to look at the costs and consider the costs to taxpayers of the ABC and wonder whether, it is servicing a healthy diversity or is it encroaching upon, the media operators who provide that diversity already.
Your wonderings do match, of course, the public musings of News Corp, who complain loud and long that the ABC is providing free of charge and that's unfair, what they are needing to sell to stay afloat. What's the difference between your view and News Corp's?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what News Corp's view is. I can only speak for my view. And the fact that I represent, a growing body of people who think that, there needs to be an increasing diversity in the media landscape and that the ABC is growing perhaps above and beyond what its charter should be or its remit at taxpayers' expense. So, I'm speaking up for my constituency. I'm participating in the battle of ideas. Other people will like my ideas, some won't. I'm happy. That's about a healthy debate.
It's 4 to 8 on Breakfast. Our guest this morning is South Australian Liberal Senator Cory Bernardi. Senator, I understand in the party room too you also suggested that there are too many ABC television channels. Is that what you think?
I'm not going to comment specifically on what I said in the party room. I don't think that's appropriate. But what I have said previously is that, the ABC originally started with a number of radio stations and a single television channel. It is now grown exponentially. We have 4 television channels. Some of them are competing with pay TV. Some are providing valuable services to children and parents and all of that. But it's not about whether there are too many. I'm just making the point that the ABC has grown enormously over the years. And
that was on the television front, that was with the encouragement of the Howard government at the time, because the commercials were so slow to tape up the multi-channelling and provide content on the multi-channels. It was a real issue for consumers. The ABC and the SBS did that. Are you saying they shouldn't have done that? That was a mistake?
No, I haven't said that at all, Fran. What I've said is that the media landscape is changing. It's rapidly evolving. You've made the point that the ABC prompted the commercial channels to expand their offerings. I think that's healthy. I think it's good for the community. But the time may be to revisit, whether we need to continue to expand the offerings now from the state broadcaster's point of view.
Yeah, but would you wind them back? I mean, we've got ABC3, which is ABC Kids. We've got ABC News 24, which the ABC has done within the resources of the ABC's news capacity now. Would you take those away? Well,
Fran, as I've said, I support the ABC's radio and television networks. I think it is in the interests of all Australians to have a state broadcaster that is able to communicate right across the spectrum. My concern is more about the rapid encroachment in the online space and the threat that it poses to our commercial operators. That's what I've consistently said. I've repeated it on a number of occasions today. So I'm not proposing we roll back the 4 television stations, but what I do think is that the ABC needs to consider its charter, needs to consider the future, and I think we have to consider structural separation of some aspects of it.
And when the PM says, as he said yesterday, he has no plans to change the way the ABC operates, are you disappointed with that?
Well, no, I'm not disappointed with the Prime Minister. He is the Prime Minister. He is operating the executive. I'm a backbencher on the Liberal side of politics, and I'm speaking up for what I think is an important debate that the country needs to have. The Prime Minister and his cabinet will make determinations. If I can make a contribution to the public debate, I'd be happy to do so.